If you've ever played Granny before, you know how scary and terrifying it can be. But one thing you probably don't know a lot about is the background story behind the game and the circumstances leading up to it. So in this video, we're going to be covering that which we know and that which we can assume about the player and even some previous victims. Let's go ahead and get into it, starting with previous victims and what we do know about them. We can see clearly written in the basement crouch room, the crouch room located right off the basement, a note on a table. No matter what difficulty the player plays in, this note always spawns right there in that exact same place on that table. The note reads, "This is my 5th day in this house. She chases me wherever I go. I'm quite injured and my body hurts. The only thing I remember before I woke up in this house is I was driving when my car suddenly broke down. I went out to see what the problem was when someone suddenly hit me in the head. I have managed to open a pair of locks on the front door, but that's all." Why does she do this? I hope no one will experience the same thing as I do. If I do not survive this, and if someone finds this message, I have noticed that she sometimes hides things inside fruits. And this, of course, references the key or the occasional spark plug that will appear inside the melon whenever you chop it open in the backyard. And the car that is referenced here, as the previous victim was having car troubles, is often believed to be the car that is sitting in Granny's garage basement. Also, we can see around the house different messages written in blood or scratched into tables telling the current player to leave the house and that the player has 5 days to escape. Also, if you look close enough in certain places, you can see the player counting away his own days, the previous victim counting away his own days in the house by tally marks. And of course, we can see different things that indicate that foul play has been going on between Granny and somebody else in the house before we got there. We see different things around the house, such as a prison cell up in the attic, where Granny probably kept her prisoners locked away between times when she would torture them, and a security camera to make sure that they never left. She left them locked up there, only despairing their last days in her house. Also, we can see a guillotine in the backyard, which indicates that, well, they met an unfortunate end, a very quick unfortunate end, mind you, but still very violent. And finally, we can see a giant pool of blood in the basement, which once again indicates the torture and absolute misery that her previous victims had to go through. We can see that there. Some can allege, though, that the previous victim is the skeleton that is in the torture room in the sewer area. We can see there that it's a torture room indeed, where Granny kept her prisoner locked up probably for the last bit of his life. And the rotting skeleton is now very fragile, as you can walk by and the head will just fall off. That is probably the previous victim, and it is also possible to assume that the meat room with the meat hook and the meat on it is the meat from that skeleton that she took, because Granny is very much a psycho. Even the very fact that her baseball bat has blood on it indicates that it was used against somebody before us, and it was not a fun game. I think that the whole goal of the previous victim is to warn us, the current player, about what Granny can do and has done before. And I don't think that the previous player's end was so good. Obviously, he didn't escape, otherwise there wouldn't be a skeleton downstairs or all these other different things that we see. So what do we know about us, the player? Well, in the PC version, we can see a cutscene that shows the player wandering through the woods. We don't know for what purposes, we don't know why, we don't know when. All we know is that he was walking towards the front of Granny's house, and he heard some noises beside him, and as he got closer, finally Granny, in a not-so-nice way, greeted him, and I should say us, and brought us into the house. So what does that mean? Well, I've heard some speculation before that originally we, the player, had crashed into an area of Granny's house, more in particular, the fence of the backyard. You see there a cracked window for the tool shed there, and that is alleged because the impact from somebody hitting the outside of the fence caused that window to crack. And then in turn, we wandered to maybe apologize or to explain or try to see what we could do about it to the person that owned the house, which of course was Granny. So we walked up to the front door, and she treated us this way. We wake up every day in the same room, and we can see that, of course, we get 5 days to try to escape the house. That, of course, is the whole gist or plot of the game. And the player discovers some of Granny's storyline, Of course, in the house, we see through a couple of Easter eggs using the book in a secret bookshelf area, we can see Granny's daughter, Angeline, her name, as she was tortured, and of course, it seems that Granny didn't like her so much either. We'll get to her in a little bit. Also, we can see up in the attic using the teddy bear, Slendrina, Granny's alleged granddaughter, which of course we will also get to later as well. I will say that of course it is the player's job in the house to escape and to overcome the certain challenges and solve the puzzles, all while being chased around by Granny. Some will make it, some won't. As I keep talking, to make sure that you don't get bored, I will play some random gameplay featuring a secret ending at the end of a round of Granny in Nightmare mode. You will see what is so special about the ending when we escape the house. So let's talk a little bit more about Granny's family and her history. Granny married Grandpa from Granny Chapter 2, and they had their daughter, Angeline. It is alleged that her daughter's name was Slendrina, after she married Slenderman, who is known better by his appearance in the Slender games and different games made by the same developer that made Granny. So we see here that Angeline is Granny's daughter, and Slendrina is Granny's granddaughter, which of course, like I said before, appear as Easter eggs if you do certain tasks within the house. At one point it is believed that Granny lost all of her beauty sometime in history along this timeline. After she lost her daughters, of course, they are not living anymore. She lost her beauty, and Grandpa left her to go live at his own place. We'll get to him later in a different video. But it is alleged that Grandpa left her, and Granny lost her beauty, and she became bitter at the world. That's why she lives by herself, off in the middle of nowhere, off in the middle of the woods, in an old, ugly, broken-down house. It didn't used to be so ugly or broken down. Grandpa was alleged to have been a great housekeeper, or I should say, good carpenter, kept it pretty up in shape. But, of course, when he left, and she didn't really care anymore, then the house broke down, her face caved in, essentially, she lost her beauty. Kind of a sad story, honestly. But, of course, we see throughout the house different signs. It's not just Granny that haunts the house, although she is the main character that does the damage. We see the ghost of Slendrina appear, and even some of the remains of Angeline, the daughter. Also, we can see that by different indications, the connection to the teddy bear found in the secret room. We can see there that every time the player picks up the teddy bear, and as we will see in the gameplay, the random gameplay per se that I am featuring, we can see that the player is, when he picks up the teddy bear, is hunted down constantly by Granny with a heartbeat sound. Now, when I do it, I will first knock out Granny, so that way she will be gone and I won't have to worry about her tracking me. But the thing is that whenever the player picks it up, there's a heartbeat sound and Granny constantly knows where you are and her eyes turn red. There is some connection between that teddy bear and Granny. And then, of course, when that teddy bear is placed into the crib, it brings the Easter egg, the ghost of Slendrina, and a little bit of piano music. So there is some connection there. I'm not entirely sure. It is hard to say if it is just an Easter egg, also with Angeline in the book, if those are just Easter eggs, or if those actually portray some kind of truth to the storyline. Regardless, we can see these things, and like I said, they have some very eerie and odd ties. And we can see also that the different things that Granny does throughout her house are not exactly normal. Her house itself, like I said before, isn't normal either. And it only gets worse when she introduces her pet rats, I should say, in Nightmare mode. And there really isn't that much more to say, other than enjoy this last secret ending. I'll turn up the volume for you. Of course, if you're not already subscribed, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell next to it. Also, if you could leave a like on your way out, that would be greatly appreciated. And comment what you think down below. If you have any tidbits about the storyline or anything else, just go ahead and put that down there. Now let's watch that secret ending. Once again, of course, as usual, goodbye and have a great day. I'll see you in the next video. Now let's watch the ending.